Okay, let's just run through this. The Chargers are ready for postseason. They're going to go play Houston. The Chargers destroyed the Raiders. Out of town scoreboard does not lie. The Chargers had 474 yards in offense. Justin Herbert was absolutely phenomenal, threw for 346. He finishes the season with 23 touchdowns and only 3 picks. I mean, those are unbelievable modern day throwing numbers. Quentin Johnston had a game of his life. Only game he's contributed like this in 3 years. 13 catches, 186.
Hey.
That's pretty impressive. But he's playing the Raiders who didn't cover him and got a crap secondary now. Can he repeat that next week when it really counts in the playoffs? Raiders defense was just deplorable. Raiders defense was on the field for 71 snaps. Chargers ran 71 plays. The Raiders only ran 48. And at the end of the day, the Raiders are 102 games under 500 since the 2003 season. So, impressive win, Chargers, Raiders. Detroit, Minnesota. Vikings went on the road. Vikings got ripped. Lions just tore them apart. Jared Goff outdueled Sam Darnold. The pressure on Darnold was unbelievable. He threw his worst game, I think, of the season. I think he threw for 134 yards. He just had no help at all. So Detroit takes out Minnesota. You got the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore just slugs their way to victory over Cleveland. Lamar Jackson, 417 yards. He finishes the season with almost 4,200 yards passing and 915 yards rushing. He's got like a 5,000-yard season.
Wow.
I mean, that's amazing. And Derrick Henry's got 1,900 yards rushing this season for the Ravens. So they are the real deal. The Rams, it was weird. They lost to Seattle. Jimmy Garoppolo, though, played pretty well. 334 yards, couple of touchdowns in the loss. Geno Smith threw for 323 and 4 touchdowns. But the Seahawks don't make the playoffs because they lost a whole pile of tiebreakers. Even though they finished with the same record as the Rams finish in first place in that division. We haven't talked about Carolina since the middle of the season when they sat their number 1 draft pick quarterback down, and everybody thought that's turned out to be a terrible pick. Tell you, Bryce Young has played really well. Carolina posted a 44-38 win yesterday over Atlanta. Bryce Young throws for 253 and another touchdown. Michael Penix, very impressive, 312, 3 touchdowns, but Atlanta doesn't make the playoffs because of the whole Kirk Cousins fiasco. Houston Texans, real deal. Dameon Pierce, who has had flashes as a running back of being a big-time power guy and then kept getting hurt. Dameon Pierce ran for 176 yesterday. Hey, Charger defense getting ready for the playoff game? That's Dameon Pierce. That's big, wide-body Dameon Pierce, who trampled the last guy for 176. You think you're a man? Can you stop him? This bears watching. They just absolutely destroyed Tennessee. So you got all that. New York Jets. Aaron Rodgers actually had a pretty good final game of the season. Is it the final game of his career as a Jet? Is it the final game in the NFL? Threw for 274 and 4 touchdowns. Jets defense, which can be Jekyll, can be Hyde, had 4 takeaways yesterday. And then you got San Francisco. They're 6-11. What a shocker. The wreckage there with injuries and attitudes. They got beat by Arizona. A lot went wrong this season, and now we just wait to see what happens in terms of a change in this roster, because I got to believe there's going to be changes in San Francisco. And in Arizona, they were good one week, bad another week. You never know what you're going to get from Kyler Murray, aside from touchdowns and turnovers. They wound up winning final game of the season, but it's meaningless because they cost themselves the playoffs by falling apart at the end of the season. So now we're going on to Wild Card Weekend. This is going to be fun. Green Bay goes to Philadelphia. We'll be talking more about this on the Thursday podcast, but I would want to play the Eagles right now because the Eagles really believe in themselves. The most interesting game to me is Washington at Tampa. Jaden Daniels against the Bucs defense. Jaden Daniels against Baker Mayfield. And then the Vikings come out to the West Coast. Vikings, they're going to have to prove themselves on the road. But this is in the playoffs, and it's going to be in the sunshine. It's not going to be in cold weather. So Minnesota Rams. So those are the NFC games. AFC games is the best thing could happen to the Chargers. They go play in Houston, Pittsburgh. Holy cow. They got to go to Baltimore in cold weather. And you got Denver. Holy cow. 2, they got to go play in Buffalo in cold and snow. So NFC playoff games are going to be fun to watch. AFC games, there's some bad outcomes probably coming there. So, John, that's what happened in the NFL Saturday, Sunday, and obviously the matchups going forward. And John Riley says,
I was watching that Sunday night game. I was expecting it to be like this blowout, shootout game, and it was just so low scoring. And it looked like Sam Darnold was like, I don't know, 4 for 35 at some point. Nothing he threw seemed to, and no one could catch a ball. He was under so much pressure. And you see, was it Ada Hutchinson there, like coaching up his guys, even though he's hurt? Apparently he could come back if the Lions make the Super Bowl.
Yeah. So at this point, Minnesota got overwhelmed. Part of me says, you would say, well, yeah, it wasn't a very good game. Part of me says that kind of looked like street tough NFC North black and blue type football.
Oh, yeah.
That's the way they played. So what do you think about the wild card weekends?
Oh, it's going to be great. Now, you were talking about Philly, Green Bay, but isn't Jordan Love hurt? Didn't he hurt
his hand or his wrist?
Yeah.
But I assume he's going to be good to go because he was walking around on the sidelines afterwards. He didn't have a cast on it or anything. So I think that's going to be a good game. I'm fascinated to see Baker Mayfield against a kid quarterback in Washington.
That's going to be a great game as well. But I would imagine weather is going to be an impact here because the parts of America are just still getting dumped with snow.
Pal, it ain't snowing in Tampa.
Oh, yeah.
Now, other places, hell yes. Chargers. Now, are you going to berate me? Or the people in Fans Forum going to berate me because I'm still a doubter? Chargers have only beaten one team with a winning record this season. And now they're going to Houston. And I'm invoking my Carolina Panther phrase. You're not playing Carolina or the Raiders or some of these other have-nots. You're playing real playoff people. What do you think about the Bolts in Houston?
Well, the Texans have not been all that sharp these last few weeks going into the playoffs. So, I mean, if you had to pick a draw against any one of the division leaders in the AFC, that's the one you'd want. Yep. So, let's see what happens. Let's just hope it doesn't turn into a disgrace like it did in Jacksonville 2 years ago.
Well, you keep going back to bad news.
Well, that's what you get with the Chargers. They're always imploding somehow.
Okay, you got a comment. Fans Forum chat box is open. What do you think about the playoffs? Say, just express an opinion. Just fill up the right side of our screen has all the chat box contributions. So bring the heat. We want to hear what you got to say so John can preview it and put stars next to the many ones that we're going to take.